and Debbie Dreisman Foundation. The Nepal Tourism Board. The Sultanate of Oman. The Kingdom of Morocco. The Forerunner Foundation. The Rotondaro Family Trust. And the Embassy Series, uniting people through musical diplomacy.
Hi, I'm Eric Asher, host of Inside New Orleans Sports. Join me every Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. for a live broadcast of Inside New Orleans Sports, featuring a reporters roundtable with local media members that cover the Saints, Pelicans, LSU, Tulane, and prep sports. Don't forget your calls are always welcome. That's Inside New Orleans Sports, Thursdays 6 to 7 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Fridays 10 to 11 p.m. on WLAE-TV.
Once the chief had a message to send to the sun, so the chief gave the message to the eagle, who flew to the place in the sky where the sun lived. The sun was so pleased that she plucked a feather from the eagle's tail and kissed it, leaving a scorched spot. She gave the feather back to the eagle to take home to the Tunica people and told us to wear it always.
We have a promise from the sun. As long as there's the sun, there will be Indian people. As long as there are Indian people, we will have the medicine.
The roots of St. Bernard Parish run deep. Here, you'll find a vibrant mix of culture, nature, strength, and hometown spirit. The Miro Foundation is celebrating 10 years of its current board of directors. For a decade, the Family Foundation has been realizing a vision that started with Arlene Miro, funding better schools, attracting new families and businesses, investing in the safety, health, and future of the community. Miro Foundation grants have nurtured the arts and created an arts campus, seeded startups and grown the economy, uplifted students, and provided land for a school, a hospital, and more. This is the land we call home, and the Miro Foundation is leading the effort to restore our coast. Dockville Farm stands as a testament to that commitment and as a welcoming place to share ideas and celebrate our culture. Thank you, St. Bernard. Because of our work together, the future is bright and getting brighter.
Is your financial house in order? Almost half of Americans do not have the proper estate plan. Estate plans are more than money and inheritance. They can guide your future health decisions and provide special instructions for loved ones. Put your mind at ease by getting your financial house in order. Consider leaving your legacy to WLAE today. For more information, call 504-830-3700.
Hey, I'm Keith Spira from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is Beatles expert and author Bruce Spicer. Bruce, is there such a thing as a favorite Beatles album for you?
Yes, the White Album.
Why?
I just love it, the variety of the music. It's not their best album, it's just my favorite.
Well, fair enough. We'll talk all things Fab Four this week on Let's Talk.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television.
Eric Asher is underwritten by.
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, the Saints, LSU, Tulane Pelicans. And of course, as you can see, we're live on our new set from our 6th Street studios. To break it in for us, two of the best we have in the state. Of course, Jude Young, CrescentCitySports.com, voice of UNO Athletics, and of course, host of All Access on 106.1 The Ticket. And Rene Nadeau of Crescent City Sports joins us on the program today. Guys, welcome to the show. Good to have you guys. What about this? We're moving on up like the Jeffersons, aren't we?
Man, I tell you, this is special. This is special. Top floor.
Too high class for us.
Yeah, well, but look at yours truly. You kidding me? Get out of here. Before we get started, Jude, once again, thank both of you guys for coming down. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on. Again, the radio, obviously what's happening at Crescent City Sports, everything you guys are doing with high school, and of course, the voice of UNO basketball.
Very busy these days. This is my time of year to miss out on sleep and rest, but it's a lot of fun. You mentioned UNO season, college basketball season on Division I level starting this week, so just got back from Kansas State. The Privateers opened their season there, so we definitely want to encourage folks to come out on Saturday. By the way, homecoming at UNO, Privateers taking on Troy. Stacey Hollowell era, off to not a winning start, but a start where I think a culture is being put into place and a style of play that people are going to really like. So bring your family out and come see the Privateers play. But as you mentioned, there's all those other things, including CrescentCitySports.com, covering college, high school, the pros, you name it, hosting some sports talk in the evenings on the only sports station in New Orleans, 106.1 The Ticket, and I do other things, by the way. I work with the Saints Hall of Fame, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, and at least I'm busy.
Yeah, you and Ken Train, I don't know when y'all sleep. Really? Wait a minute.
He doesn't. He doesn't. I know that for a fact. I sneak some in there.
Yeah, there you go. Rene, welcome back to the show.
Always great to be here, man.
Always good to have you, my friend. Tell the folks about what you're doing with CrescentCitySports.com and everything you're involved.
Well, you know, I send a few things to Jude once a week, and I got a good story. I tell you what, on LSU, Alabama. Burton Burns had a nice conversation with him, and did a story on Tulane also. So always got recruiting, LSU, Tulane, Saints stuff, Pelicans. So a lot going on, and of course signing date's coming up soon, so there'll be a lot more recruiting stuff coming up. Worked for CBS Radio and WFAN in New York for Saints games, some Pelicans, Sugar Bowl, different things like that. So you know, it's been a nice travel.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's start first of all, high school. Again, nobody covers high school like Crescent City Sports. Tell us about what's going on right now.
Well, this show happening on a Thursday. We have a game on 106.1 The Ticket, a huge one for the 9-5A, quote-unquote, Catholic League District Championship Carr and Rummel. You can listen to that or watch another great matchup on CrescentCitySports.com between Archbishop Shaw and St. Charles Catholic. Two fine programs, great coaches. You can watch that live and free, always free on Crescent City Sports. As we go into week 10 of the regular season, which has kind of been chopped into 2 big days instead of your usual Friday, concerns about the system in the Gulf means that over 60 games have been moved up to Thursday night. So that's not normal, obviously. If 30 would be a big night, but this gives the teams the ability to avoid any potential bad weather and get an extra week of rest for those that are going to the playoffs. 8 playoff brackets. We'll have coverage of that every week. Ken Trahan's Original Prep Football Report every Friday night. As the playoffs progress, we'll have live games there, and of course we'll have a live playoff game or maybe 2 every week on Crescent City Sports sports for folks to watch as well. It's just starting there, the race to the Superdome coming up in December.
And of course, countdown to the original. You're at Francesca on Friday nights with Les East, getting ready and getting folks ready for, again, the original on 106.1 The Ticket.
Right, one more week of that for sure. We may have a week in the playoffs that I won't be at. I'll be on the road with UNO, but Les and I get to meet with these coaches in the school communities. They support us really well at Scott Craig's great little deli in Lakeview. If you haven't been, come join us for John Curtis night. All you get to do is hang out with the winningest high school coach in the history of the game. JT Curtis will be there starting at 6 o'clock in the evening on Friday.
There you go. Let's get started, folks. Again, we'll start with the New Orleans Saints. Again, losers of 7 straight, lost to Carolina 23-22. Of course, Dennis Allen fired on Monday. We're finding out more and more about, again, what happened behind the scenes with Dennis Allen and the situation there. Again, there's been reports Mrs. Benson met with the team, that Mickey Loomis wanted to keep Dennis Allen through at least through the end of the season, didn't want to make a move in the middle of the season. But again, Mrs. Benson with again, conversation with the team, and also from what was reported was her, I guess, her inner circle meeting with fans or talking to fans, and they came up with, again, the decision to be able to move away from Dennis Allen. First of all, your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a situation where you knew going into the game in Charlotte that if the Saints didn't win that one, they were more than healthy enough playing what I think is the worst team in the league. If you don't win that football game, you lose your 7th straight, you're losing the locker room at that point, and you're certainly losing the fan base. You're showing that you're not serious about doing what's best for the organization. And I'm not saying in-season firings are the greatest thing in the world, but at some point you have to make a statement that this is unacceptable and we are going to move on. And I think in this case, an organization that doesn't want to do that did the right thing, and I give Gail Benson a lot of credit. She lets her football people handle football business, but she knew she needed to get involved. And I think it helps that she is in the community. She is a local who cares about what the community thinks. And when you've got such a vibe of negativity and you're owning that team, you're owning that business, and you realize that people are so down on your business that they don't believe in it anymore, you made the right move in that case. And that's something I know she didn't want to do, but I salute her for it.
Yeah. Rene, what's your take? Again, you've covered Dennis Allen throughout his career in New Orleans. I'm not sure how far. Do you go back to the Moore era in terms of the covering the Saints? Or
yeah,
okay,
I go back to early '80s.
That's what I thought.
Oh yeah.
Okay, early '80s. So again, you saw Moore
Phillips.
Right, Moore quit. You saw the situation with Bum Phillips and his son again taking over there. Changing coaches in the middle of the season is never a good thing. You may get a little bit of a bump. We'll see how that works out. But from your perspective,
I remember when Dick Nolan was let go.
Yeah.
Okay. Bum Phillips stepped aside for his son, and Jim Moore. And I tell you what, I remember talking to some players, I won't say names, but some guys still hold a little bit animosity towards Jim Moore the way he stepped down. The thing with Dennis Allen, and I agree with what Jude said, losing to Carolina was bad, but what expedited this thing is the fact that this coming week is a home game, and the greatest fear that they had was 20,000, 30,000 people in the stands with bags.
Right.
And so I'm not saying if it had been a road game, it had been much different, but the fact that it's a home game coming up, that really kind of accelerated things a little bit. And, a lot of things that, and it's been discussed, and I can firsthand attest to this, players parking in the parking lot in the front where the media parks, and not only the media, ticket holders, season ticket holders who want to go to the ticket office, anybody want to address business with the Saints has to park there, and the Saints players have been parking there for a long time, and it's been, and I know Mickey Loomis kind of downplayed it. In the media, we've talked about this quite a bit. It's extremely annoying, and one of the guys who was the biggest culprit is gone now, so you figure out who that is. But it's just things like that, and you'd say, well, who cares where the players park? It's all about control, and things got ragged, and the players in some ways were just allowed to do whatever they wanted. And I just think that I think Dennis knew he was losing the team, and the injuries made it worse. But also guys who are hurt were less motivated to get back. I'm not saying the guy is laying down, but I think there were some players who are hurt were less motivated to get back on the team because, what am I playing for?
Right. 18-25 is a record with New Orleans. Overall record 26-53 as a head coach. There have been rumblings that there was a division in the locker room, as you mentioned. Again, the buzzword has been accountability or lack thereof, right? And of course, one example is the parking situation. Another example is what we're seeing on the field, and the lack of accountability, the attention to detail, and of course, a lot of that has to come back to discipline. And again, it looks like Dennis Allen came in as a kinder, gentler coach, different than a guy that was Sean Payton, who was detail-oriented, who was a demanding coach. And even though, again, the coaching staff was turned over, the team was turned over, obviously, again, Dennis Allen wasn't able to pull this thing together, even after, again, a 2-0 start, be able to pull these guys out of the situation. And I think, again, the injuries exposed this team as well for their lack of depth. And once the injuries came, that's when it was just a snowball effect.
Right, it's not always one thing. No. But let's go back to the discipline point. Let's not act like we should be surprised. The season finale last year, the players refusing to kneel down because they wanted to get Jamal Williams a touchdown, led by Jameis Winston, but it wasn't just Jameis Winston. If that wasn't a flashing red light of something being wrong here, could you imagine that ever happening under Sean Payton? Those players, everyone involved would have somehow not been on the team one way or the other, not just Jameis Winston. Right. So that should have told us right there, and it was covered well after the fact, but it should have been followed up on to see exactly what's going on, because you've got good leaders in the locker room. Don't tell me that Demario Davis and Cam Jordan aren't great leaders. Right. I mean, they've established themselves on and off the field, and yet you have that kind of discipline problem, that lack of focus, and in the end, lack of belief. If the players believe they're going to win, sure, they're going to play hard and they're going to follow what the coaches say. If they don't believe, then what happens? Business decisions about injuries, business decisions about suddenly Dennis Allen's defense. He's a defensive coach. Suddenly, the tackling went so far downhill that, let's face it, that Tampa Bay game, that's another flashing red light. It was an embarrassment. And I use the term business decisions. We've heard it before. Tyrone Hughes on the Saints Hall of Fame post-game show on the ticket pointed that out right away. He's seen more and more evidence of it, although it's not as bad against the Buccaneers. And you add all that up, that tells you that this is a locker room that's been lost for a while.
Yeah. No doubt. Your thoughts?
You know, the thing is that, and I'm not saying Dennis Allen put himself on the same level as the players, but I was having lunch with a therapist friend of mine a couple of days ago, and he said, parents come into me and they say, I can't do anything with my child. Can you help him and stuff? And they said, you got to stop being his friend. And in some cases, maybe Dennis was a little too close to the players, more as a player than a coach. And you know, there's little things. You know, we talked about the injuries and stuff like this, and right now they're making a shift and they reassigning the lockers and stuff like that. And people say, how can that make a big difference? Well, it's like living on the same block and you're in the same house, but now they're putting the salespeople on the block in the same area, and the bus drivers, and the nurses, and the teachers. And they put them in the same 3 or 4 house area, kind of the same type of people who do the same type of work. So now you have the quarterbacks and the running backs and the linemen in the same areas of the locker room. It's not as spread out as much as it was before. And yeah, you can walk across the room and all, but it's more likely in the locker room when you're sitting down, you're conversing with guys. And Derek Carr now will converse more with Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler and those guys. He'll be sitting next to him. And it's little things. And I'm going to tell you something else too. I know this sounds like small potatoes, but I remember in college, going back, I'm going to age myself a little bit, we used to have snap-on pads in the pants, or you would belt on pads inside you. And so I remember the coach coming out and saying, and this was a great revelation, he said, this was during the season, you don't have to wear hip pads today at practice. And you'd have thought a cold front came through in August. I mean, the spirit on this team for this practice, a little thing like that. And what I'm saying is Darren Rizzi can hit buttons and do things like that, small things that were overlooked before. Now you may say hip pads, what is that? But he's doing little things. He's moving the offense from one side. And he's just, as you both know, sometimes games are won above the shoulder pads, and that's what he's addressing, that more so than maybe it was before.
Special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi, again, was named interim coach. Your thoughts?
It seemed like the logical choice after reflection. I was saying on the Saints Hall of Fame postgame show after the Carolina loss that if a move is made, I would want to see what Clint Kubiak could do in that leadership role for the reasons that Rene mentioned, as well as just his ability to be able to handle calling plays and run a locker room, lead an organization. But I get the feeling that it was the right decision because I think there are going to be major changes made at the end of the season, some that maybe we don't expect, or at least we didn't think were possible considering how entrenched the football leadership is there as the front office goes and even above that. So that makes me actually feel a little better about the idea that the Saints are ready to make real changes, fully move on from the Sean Payton era, and maybe even move on from people like Mickey Loomis as far as the day-to-day activities and have different leadership, a different vision, because the NFL changes so much from basically every 5 to 10 years. There's so many changes that we don't realize as a fan that change how you want to build a football team and how you want to attack on the field and win. And I think the Saints need new eyes, new voices, putting together personnel, and obviously leadership of how you're going to attack things like we desperately needed in 2005, 2006.
Rene, your thoughts on Rizzi getting the job, and was there somebody else in the organization that maybe should have gotten the position as an interim coach?
Rizzi is one of the few people who's got head coach experience at some level. He's one of the very few people that does. And he's, as a special teams coach, he also touched most of the players more so than any other position coach, you know, except for maybe Derek Carr. So he came in contact with more players than any other position coach, so he had a relationship with most of the guys. And that means a lot. I think his personality, I know he's fiery, he's not afraid to make some changes or adjustments, whatever it may be. But how much is difference that going to make? You know, it's again, you know, the game is won above the shoulder pads in many cases, and the Saints are not the most talented team, but they certainly have enough talent to have won a couple more games this year than they lost. And going forward, you know, I know some people are writing them off saying, I don't know if they'll win another game. They may surprise you, and if you have the right attitude and maybe the right preparation approaching the game, and that goes into getting the players to buy in. As we said a second ago, guys who are maybe hurt, not in a big hurry to get back, maybe there'll be more of a hurry to get back now for some reason. That'll have an overall a positive effect on the picture.
Yeah, look, I hear both of you, and look, in my opinion, I think we'll find out a lot. Every one of those players, everyone in that organization is now in a prove it to me mode. So even if you were maybe holding on to an injury too long, maybe again you weren't doing what you needed to do in terms of again getting in your playbook. You didn't have the attention to detail on game day. I think that has to ramp up because again, I think everyone is being scouted now, not just again by this organization, but again, people will be looking to see, okay, how did you react after you got your coach fired? Because that's what happened here. The players got their coach fired.
Exactly.
Okay, I mean, you can sugarcoat all you want. At the end of the day, whether you like Dennis Allen, you don't like Dennis Allen, they quit playing for Dennis Allen.
Well, the concern is the flip side of it now, that if it's not really an in-house evaluation, that you have a lot of people on and off the field who might be thinking, I need to find a new job. So maybe there's no evaluation and accountability that is going to be going on there. So for the players, they know there are 31 other places they can get a job, so they better be professional and be ready to play and perform. But I don't know how that's going to hold up if this team doesn't find some wins quickly. It's just going to get worse otherwise. But there's some bad teams they've got left to play. The Browns are in a similar situation. They've underachieved. They're in a bad spot. They've lost their quarterback. That investment didn't work. The Giants, they just can't win, and they have personnel issues as far as, I think they have a very good coach. The Raiders down the line, just thinking of some teams on that schedule, that there's some wins there if they show up to play their home games. But if they don't come up and play well and get a win in these first 2 or 3, then that new coach bump and that play for pride thing's going to disappear pretty fast, going back to those business decisions that Rene knows very well. That's a thing, and it should be when you're putting your body on the line like they do.
You know, I don't have to say names, but I don't expect Gail Benson to sell a team, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's some people buy into the ownership. And this franchise needs a shot right now of adrenaline, and you know, something to make a big splash. And I don't know if Mickey Loomis is ready to give up his spot. I think he's 68 years old now.
Yes.
And And Mickey, if he wants to, and maybe it all is agreed upon, he may go into another position in the organization.
As he should.
Kai Harley has done a good job where he is. A name hasn't come up and has not had good drafts is Jeff Ireland.
Certainly.
So I mean, everybody needs to be evaluated, but top to bottom, I would think that Dennis Laugia and Gail Benson to go outside the organization to people's opinion they trust and evaluate this. What would you do? Maybe former football people and say, top to bottom, what looks bad to you and things like that. And there's people out there you know very well, names that can give you an opinion, a very educated opinion, guys who have had success winning Super Bowls. And I suspect to bring in those type of people as consultants, wouldn't shock me if a part of the Saints ownership is scooped up by someone, a football type person. And I don't know. I don't have any inside information. I'm just kind of guessing, but it wouldn't shock me if that happened.
On personnel, it hasn't been all bad because you have to point out what kind of talent they've sent outside of the organization that's had some success. And we think about Terry Fontenot. It looks like he's doing a pretty good job in Atlanta. They're on top of the division, and they've got talent on both sides of the ball.
Up in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this organization has had some successes over the years in a framework that's been in place for 2 decades now in one shape or form. So we have to say it hasn't been all bad, but it does come down to back to the leadership on the field and choosing Dennis Allen, who did not have success with the Raiders, who has a certain way he wants to build a defense that I think is being exposed long term. The biggest issue I've had is the way they want to build their defensive fronts, their defensive ends, where they don't value or they put themselves in a bad financial situation to let a smaller defensive end like Trey Hendrickson go, and who they keep and they wind up drafting. They want a defensive end that's at least 6'4", that's at least 270, 275, who fits this body framework, instead of going out there and saying, you know, speed is important in this league. And I think the Saints defense more often than not looks a little slow. That's just my opinion watching other games. And I think different deals like that you look at and you say, that's what Dennis Allen wanted. They've been building a defense for him for a decade. So that again lies at his feet a little bit more than it does a front office that's trying to serve his needs to be able to win. You got to draft to your coaching. You've got to believe that they've got the right plan and give them the personnel they want, just like Sean Payton had his hand on a lot of different decisions, good and bad, to build particularly his offense the way he wanted it to perform.
Right. Let me just add this too. You know, it was very, very unlikely that Derek Carr would be traded before the trade deadline. We know that.
Yeah.
But you know, some people who know, some talking heads, it was interesting. I listened to some saying, if Derek Carr were traded, where would he go to upgrade that position?
Right.
What does that say?
Right.
What does that say? That is their opinion, but this is people I trust. But they were talking about if the Saints were to trade Derek Carr to a team, is he going to upgrade that position that much? And that's just starting quarterback.
Yeah. This is an indictment on the entire organization. This is an indictment on Mickey Loomis. This is an indictment on Jeff Ireland. This is an indictment on Dennis Allen. But again, it's also an indictment on the players. They have been exposed because of again, horrible drafts. The way that they go about their drafts, and in terms of trading away draft picks to try to go get one player, when again, you know that you have salary cap limitations, and that is quote unquote cheap labor. That is the players that you develop. Okay, so they're the core of your team in a lot of cases. That has not happened. The guy that was the driving force in this organization is in Denver now, and it looks as though since he's left, they've been exposed. Everyone knew that there was going to be an issue with the salary cap. Everyone knew it was going to take a few years to be able to get back to again even where again you could go out and compete with other teams in for players. Everybody knew that, but once they got injured like they did early in the season, it exposed the lack of depth. It exposed those misses in drafts. And it also exposed the inability to sign your own. Because you look around the league now and you look at all the Saints players who are playing for other teams, those that brought the Payton culture to those teams, those players are either captains of their teams, they're driving force for their teams. They're players that, again, that are major contributors to their teams. In a lot of cases, that's the core of this team. They're elsewhere because they couldn't re-sign them because of, again, the decision to be able to, again, kick the can down the road, how they wanted to manipulate the cap. At the end of the day, they may have saved themselves if they would have drafted well, but they didn't draft well. So, again, that's why you're here. To me, Dennis Allen didn't do the job. Okay, there's no doubt about that. The record says that. But again, Dennis Allen went into this job, had to know that he was going to be a little hamstrung. And now this has come to fruition 3 seasons later.
Here's what blows my mind. And Rene has done a great job on CrescentCitySports.com over the years writing about the undrafted free agent funds. Not just good players, but all pros like Rashid Shaheed most recently.
Agreed.
What I don't understand is you talk about trading away picks to trade up, to target players. I have no problem when you're doing that in the first round, when on average, if you listen to front offices that leak to reporters, they say roughly 20 to 25 elite true first rounders every year for 32 picks, right? After that, it's different after that. The rest of the draft, there's a second tier, but it's such a drop off from the first tier, and we know they're wrong a lot of the time on the first tier. But at that point, you're just talking about what you can get out of a player talent-wise. Their physical abilities tend to be roughly the same, and you can find a guy who was at Weber State who can not only be a great kick returner like he was there, but Shaheed can be one of the best deep threats in the league, and the Saints have done that. But yet they're targeting, and I'm not going to argue about Trevor Penning or Chris Olave and those type of moves, of course, Marcus Davenport. That's one thing. You're trying to target what you think's an elite player at the position, right or wrong. But second and third round, they're just dumping day picks to move up in the second and third round, when you can find players in the fourth and fifth round easily that are just as good. The numbers and the tracking over the years bear that out. So it's an arrogance there. I said it 1,000 times. If I'm trying to hit the bullseye, I'm not a professional dart player, but I want as many darts as possible if my job is to hit the bullseye. The more I have in my hand, the better shot I have to do it. The less, let's face it, what happens? That's what the Saints have done to themselves, and that's why their depth at so many positions, I think, is compromised.
That's right.
And Carl Granderson is another undrafted free agent.
They've done a great job on undrafted. Thankfully, they have. What would this team be without, again, the scouts that found these undrafted free agents? And again, a lot of there's a reputation about the New Orleans Saints that if you are an undrafted free agent, you get an opportunity to be able to showcase yourself. So again, agents will push those players to the team like New Orleans because they know they have a legitimate shot. But at the end of the day, you have squandered your draft capital, and that's one of the reasons why you're in the situation you're in now.
The Super Bowl team, Pierre Thomas, Lance Moore, 7th rounder Marcus Colston. It goes on and on, even on the offensive line.
Sammy Knight was a Hall of Famer.
Of course. I mean, the Saints' history even before the Loomis Payton era. So again, they're out there. I would want as many picks as possible, so I'm bringing them into camp that are higher rated players, so I can see if I can find more guys than bringing in 10, 15 undrafted guys, hoping to find one or two. There's a mix there that this front office has gotten wrong more often than not, and for every 2017 draft, there have been a lot of head scratches.
Well, they've been living off the 2017 draft. Okay, and again, one of the last players from that draft got traded. Marshawn Lattimore's been traded to Washington for a 3rd, 4th, and 6th round pick. Again, the Saints that's the Saints' original 6th round pick that they traded for Ridgeway. Now Loomis sends a 5th round selection back as a sweetener, and every time that happens, I think of the late great Rick Gailey on this program telling me again the team that sends the sweetener back is the team that loses the deal. But when you look at Lattimore, and again, as you mentioned, maybe again a situation where he's not coming back quickly. 22, 7 games for a kidney laceration, 23, 7 games for an ankle injury. Again, missed time again this year with a hamstring. You look at the situation again, is he the same player he was a few years ago? No, he's not. I think he gets away with a lot with reputation. There's no doubt he's still a great cornerback, or a very good cornerback, and he's going to, especially at most teams, again, they're going to shy away from throwing at him. But Saints have to eat dead money here. Part of, again, the situation is when you are utilizing veterans' contracts to open up cap room, to be able to sign more players. $14.1 million in dead money in 2024, $31.6 million in dead money in 2025. Guys, was this a good move for the New Orleans Saints?
It was a really good move, but the issue is, and I love the way Alvin Kamara is playing this year, at his age, you're getting towards 30. You wind up tacking on a couple more years where running backs fall off the cliff in most cases, especially the smaller ones. Derrick Henry's a freak. Most don't do that these days, and you're tacking on another $25 million for 2 years on Kamara. That's not smart business. And then a couple weeks later, you decide, okay, well, we fired the coach. Now it's time to sell off a big piece, and you eat that money with Lattimore. It's just odd to me. It doesn't add up. What's the plan here? We're suddenly shifting, and then we also don't see Chase Young leave, a one-year tryout guy, when teams are dying for defensive end help around. Like, you couldn't get something there. So again, you start asking these questions, and you wonder wonder, okay, is there a division as far as the leadership goes that's at this point only going to widen since Allen's been fired, and maybe you're grateful that they haven't made other moves? Leave that to another, hopefully, I'm going to say it, hopefully another GM. They need new leadership. They need a new head of football operations with a different vision from a winning organization.
It's got to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to ask you about Lattimore, and I want to come back to that in a moment. Go ahead.
And I want to add this to it. Lattimore, that was something that had to be done. It was not, if he's playing up to his potential, yes, he's good, but not the way he's been. So it was a positive move for the Saints and something that had to be done. Chase Young tells me this is his third team. I would guess that they probably would not offer more than a 5th or 6th round pick for him.
But take it.
Take it.
You're not
I'm saying at most.
You need to stop out draft.
A conditional pick.
Right. And they just turned it down. Right. And they turned it down.
Which is ridiculous.
But I mean,
again,
this is his third team. If they had that, if they offered that, I think they offer no more than that. And this is basically just a class that had a bunch of clowns in class going on, and the teacher couldn't control them, and nobody was learning anything. Now the teacher got fired, and now you got somebody come in and it's going to get kicked in the butt now.
And it's not a movie, okay?
No,
there's not going to be a big turnaround.
No, this is going to be the new teacher in town. But the thing is that
but a more demanding teacher.
A more demanding teacher.
And a motivator of men, right? I mean, a guy that understands that he's coming in, and there's no nonsense at this point. And again, one thing that Rizzi's got to do is identify the cancers on this team. The coaches know what's going on. You played the game. You played the game at a collegiate level. They know what's going on.
I can almost tell you names of some guys I think ought to go, and I'm not in the locker room all the time, but I can tell you a few names.
So you know just from that, okay? So you don't think these coaches know who's in their tablet, who's in the playbook, who's the attention to detail? Film doesn't lie.
And I tell you what, too, we mentioned Trey Hendrickson. There's a guy coming to town this week, had a good career, solid career as a 4th-round pick, Caden Ellis.
Yeah.
And he's a good player for the Falcons.
The league is littered with players.
And he's a good one.
And he was a slow developmental guy. But he finally hit it and find it, and then you let him go.
He's a good player for the Falcons.
Well, they never utilized him correctly.
Yeah.
Okay? And never used that. Again, you go right down. Zach Bond the same way.
As well.
Same way. I mean, again, that was the issue. All right, guys. This is the final word, because I got to catch a break here. There is no doubt that most people believe that, again, that it's time to move on from Mickey Loomis. It's time to move on from Jeff Ireland. There needs to be, again, a house cleaning of this organization. Again, a new vision, new leadership from top to bottom. Again, firing Dennis Allen doesn't go far enough. If you're firing Dennis Allen, you're keeping the same situation intact. Again, you're shifting the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Do you think that will happen?
I have a feeling it finally will happen, since I just don't think it's of this organization's nature to make a move in season. The fact that Gail Benson stepped up and did that, one would have to think that the one person support she has is Dennis Lauscha. That's the person who's running the business, so to speak, of the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans. So I have a feeling that they understand that the business needs a change in leadership at this point, because they wouldn't have made the move with Allen otherwise, despite obvious reasons why they should have, because Dennis Allen's a really nice guy.
He is. Yes.
Maybe too nice, obviously, is a big part of the equation, but such a nice guy that if the season's lost, if they didn't really feel like we need to make a statement, not just inside the organization, but outside of it, they wouldn't have made this move, and I think more statements and big moves are coming.
Dennis Lauscha, I'm sorry, Mickey Loomis is part of the executor of the will. Again, he's part of, again, when Mrs. Benson dies, to distribute, again, the Benson fortune. Obviously, he's been a loyal employee. He's been there for a couple decades. We think a move will be made.
And I wonder if Mickey may say, I don't know this, I'm getting up in age, and I'm just going to take another position. I'll be a consultant, and it'll be his decisions, kind of. But I think he'll be in another position next year. I'm guessing that. And again, I say this: I wouldn't be shocked if there's some football people get involved in the in an organization in some way, shape, or form that's going to help. Get this direction going in the right direction.
It won't be like Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick with the Patriots, the greatest dynasty ever. Mickey Loomis is going to be around as long as he wants to be around and treated like he should be. He'll be a Saints Hall of Famer. He'll be honored for what he did. What he did after Hurricane Katrina and everything since, he deserves those honors.
No, I look at it and I agree. Okay, it will be a delicate way to handle. He's not going to be summarily fired. They're going to walk him out. Okay, it's going to be a situation where probably he's going to come out and say, I've decided okay, to move into another position. Should have been done years ago, and look, I've talked about it.
Yeah.
David Griffin's over the basketball. He makes all the decisions. They got to find somebody, a football person, to be over the football organization.
We need another hour about that David Griffin.
It's good to know. Well, no, we'll get to it later on. Guys, I am so far behind. I know that my director, William Hill's just doing this right. He's pulling his hair out. We will take a break, hear from our underwriters. We'll come right back. When we do, we'll talk the collegiate game. We'll talk about the Pels. Stay tuned.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Rene Nadeau and also Jude Young are our guests. All right, guys, LSU 15th in the college football playoff poll, 14th in the AP, 13th in the coaches poll, Alabama 11th in all polls. Nationally televised game on ABC. Tiger Stadium, 6:30. Game day is going to be in Baton Rouge as well. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for Alabama. Rene, I'm going to take you first on this one, okay? Talk to me about this game coming off that Texas A&M game where they get outscored 31-6 in the second half, where they have the inability to be able to handle a running quarterback when, again, you know these guys have handled running quarterbacks throughout since they were in Pop Warner. What has Brian Kelly done over the last 2 weeks to prepare his team for Alabama?
Well, I'll say this, and it's not an excuse, but it's a reason. You know, what happened at Texas A&M, Elko really, he was desperate. He put a quarterback in. He didn't know if he was going to win, but he was not going to win if he kept Connor Wegman in. And LSU had prepared. Remember, you only practice 20 hours a week. And you don't have so much time. You don't want to, you know, a coaching staff does not want to prepare all the time what may never happen. And you'd say, well, they faced running quarterbacks before. It's hard to change in midstream. It really is. Duties on the defense. And this guy just played lights out, okay, from Texas A&M. Moving forward.
But isn't it about discipline, though, Rene? I mean, again, you got to be gap disciplined when in the.
But it's a lot more change in the defense than you think. It's you know, tackling is tackling. I understand. Okay. But the defense would have changed totally from what they were chasing with Connor Wegman in the face, what they were facing in the first half.
Sure.
It's a total different.
But I mean, it does happen.
It does. But I'm saying is that not only that, credit the guy he did a heck of a job. Okay, the Texas A&M did a heck of a job. Their offense changed, and they just, you know, they outcoached LSU in that game. The game coming up, they're going to be facing Jalen Milroe, and you know, I sent it into Crescent City Sports. I had a great conversation with a dear friend, Burton Burns, who coached 11 years at Alabama, 5 national championships, and he gave his perspective on the game coming up because he's been in a bunch of them. And he said either quarterback can win the game. He knows Nussmeier because Doug Nussmeier was on the staff at Alabama. He knows Garrett very well. He knows Milroe very well. He said, what's going to happen, and I totally agree, it's going to come down to ball security and third down conversion. And LSU does very well in both of those. It's also going to come down to a second down if I'm using LSU as perspective, if LSU can move the ball in second down, not make it third and long, because LSU's only success in third down has been Garrett Nussmeier. Right. You make it one-dimensional. You make Alabama, you pin their ears back and come after you. And credit Garrett Nussmeier for pulling LSU out of the hole a few times with his arm on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and that kind of thing. LSU can't allow themselves to be in that. Also, penalties at the wrong time. You know, you're looking at a 2nd and 5, and all of a sudden you get a 5-yard penalty. 2nd and 10, things change a lot. You can't allow a mental mistake. The thing is, Alabama's weakness right now is in their secondary, and that's very strange. They've turned out so many first-round picks, but it sets up, if Garrett Nussmeier is in sync, he could light up in the first quarter. LSU could go up 14 points right away. I'm saying is they have those kind of weapons. So does Alabama.
Yeah.
But playing at home must mean a lot, and LSU's offensive line is going to have to block. Two guys who have been disappointments, Miles Frazier and Emory Jones, have not lived up to the hype in preseason. They're going to have to step up and really play a hell of a game, and as Will Campbell will. But the receivers at LSU are capable of getting open. Garrett Nussmeier is capable of having an outstanding game. Milroe, LSU is going to have to put a spy on him. We'll absolutely have to put maybe a strong safety to cover him.
Not Weeks?
Huh?
Not Weeks?
I don't know if I'd use Weeks. In some cases, maybe, but
because he had been a spy.
I know, but boy, he can do so many things for you.
Yeah,
he can do so many things for you. I mean, it's almost like Burns, maybe Major Burns. I mean, but Weeks possibly, but Burns is another one. Yeah. But you change it up a little bit too. Sure. You don't have one person, but I think LSU's defense is certainly good enough to keep Alabama in check. Big plays. It's going to come down to a couple of plays and the field goal, special teams, field goal kicking also will play a role in this game.
Give me your thoughts, because I think one of the keys to the game is, again, and really to the rest of the LSU season, is the ability to run the football, something they have to be able to do.
Yes.
Right, and Alabama's in the mid-60s nationally in rushing defense. So not only do they have vulnerabilities on the back end of their defense, but this isn't a Nick Saban defense. They can be had. LSU needs to execute, but they simply haven't consistently established a running game because of the issues up front. And obviously at center, DJ Chester has not been good. He is clearly the weak link, and that hurts you. When you talk about a team that wants to run from inside the tackles. You can see that because that sets up the play action and everything they want to do to be able to set up taking deeper shots down the field. I want to defend and criticize Nussmeier because that's what it's going to come down to. He was brilliant in the first 2 quarters plus at Texas A&M. That one interception, which came right before the quarterback change, when he led an 8-play touchdown drive in front of 100,000 people at night in College Station, changed the whole emotional feel of that game, and it becomes a snowball effect. I mean, these are still young. I mean, it's a pay-for-play age now, right? But they're young players, and this is a defense that had a lot of confidence, has started to lose it because they were struggling with the zone read. You saw that, and Nussmeier, he sort of crumbled, let's be honest. He threw 2 more bad interceptions. All 3 were terrible. And he had been playing so well, and he is a gunslinger, and they've been trying to coach that out of him while still getting the most out of him, and that's been a process behind the scenes that we've heard about.
He's not getting help, though, right? No running game.
If you don't have the running game to take the ball out of his hands and make life easier, then sure, you're at greater risk of his greatest weakness being exposed. They have no excuse with the extra time to prepare for Alabama. They get the 100,000 people. They get the emotions at night of being able to take advantage of that. You hope they don't play a terrible first quarter like they did against Ole Miss, where they were lucky not to be down more before they got into some sort of a rhythm. Alabama's defense isn't as good as Ole Miss. I don't think their offense, despite Milroe, presents as many challenges. I think you're going to get the Tigers' best game, and I love them as an underdog in this spot. If LSU plays like they're capable of, I expect them to not only be in position to win the game, but I feel like this is a great spot for them to win it. The SEC has never been this NFL-like, but I guess that's what they've been building towards, like where any team can beat another on a given day. I think LSU's got Alabama in a great spot and believes they can win.
Gary Dellinger is out with the tightrope surgery. Again, he may be back for Florida, but again, that is a loss there as well. To me, they've got to manufacture a running game if they can't get it going. They've got to go the short passing game to the running backs. Nussmeier has to be a willing runner when it's available. Those things have to happen to be able to augment what they haven't been able to do consistently in terms of running the football.
Let me ask you, Rene.
Yeah, man.
The screen game. I don't think LSU utilizes that enough, particularly without a running game.
They don't. And I'm going to tell you who they miss a lot. They miss John Emery a lot.
Yeah.
And even though he's not played, he's been hurt. Logan Diggs, had either one of those guys been at LSU, because it's a lot more than just talent. Caden Durham is a very talented guy, and he'll be better next year. But boy, it's a big jump from high school. I don't care if you rush for 3,000 yards to the SEC. It's sometimes the holes are not where you think they're going to be. And in zone blocking and things that LSU employs, a hole that's designed to go through the 3-hole, maybe between the guard and the tackle, it may be on a weak side. He may have to cut it back or maybe somewhere else because of where the defense is playing. So, and you have to have experience and know what to look for. And Caden Durham I don't think he has enough experience as a running back in the SEC to also find the right holes and stuff. And you'd have to go back and see every play and see if maybe if it had made a better decision to go backside or maybe bounce it out a little bit more. It's little things like that. And John Emery or Logan Diggs or Josh Williams is a good player and he's a blue collar guy. Yeah. But I'm saying is, you need a veteran, and you need 2 or 3 veteran running backs, and I guarantee, regardless of what happens, I know LSU's bringing in Lindsey and Barry next year. They will add at least one transfer portal running back in this transfer portal.
Yeah, they can't be that young. J.T. Lindsey from Alexandria Senior High and Harlan Berry from St. Martin's, the #1 ranked running back in the country. True freshman. Asked to step in with a true sophomore. I don't think Brian Kelly's going to take that risk. I totally agree.
You're going to have to add at least 1, if not 2.
That'll be in the transfer portal. I agree as well. Also, I think wide receivers is another place to go for transfer portals as well. All right, guys. Let's first of all, like LSU against Alabama.
Do I like them? Yeah. There's a good chance they could win.
Okay.
I agree.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. I do too. I think LSU will win on Saturday. Okay. Tulane is 7-2, 5-0 in the conference. They have won 15 straight conference games, the longest winning streak in the country. They beat Charlotte 34-3 on Halloween night. They got Temple on Saturday. Sold out Yeoman. Again, that is a 3 o'clock kickoff on ESPNU. 106.1 The Ticket, and of course our sister station 106.1.7 pregame 2 o'clock. Again, 3 o'clock kickoff. 28th in the AP, 26th in the coaches poll. Huge game for Tulane, huge stretch for Tulane here to continue to be able to stack wins. Guys, if you look at what's going on around them right now, the path to the college football playoff is littered with some potholes here for them. Okay, you look at Boise State now, 12th in the college football playoff again, and they are in a weak conference right now. You look at Army's 25th. Obviously, they'll get a chance to play them. Oklahoma 5-4 now. Memphis has lost last weekend. What was it? Navy lost last weekend as well. The RPI for the AAC is 8th best in the nation, behind the Mountain West and the Sun Belt. When you talk about Boise, they've got Nevada, San Jose, Wyoming, and Oregon State left. So as well as Tulane is playing right now, and they can win the American Athletic Conference and go through and have a great season, the path that everybody thought the college football playoffs may not be there.
Right, and the biggest concern is the Mountain West in general, because UNLV and Boise played a very close game on a Friday night. UNLV only has the 1 loss. What Tulane can't have is both of those teams play for the Mountain West title again with 1 loss, because that winner almost certainly is going to be the one. So you can't control that. The obvious point is you have 2 losses, you've got to win the rest of your games. So Tulane fans can enjoy looking at that stuff. The team needs to control what it should control, and I think they're the better team in all the rest of their games, including potentially Army and whatever rematch could happen in the championship.
So it's Temple at Navy, Memphis, guys. For guys that for the audience doesn't know what the next 3 games are. Go ahead.
And I would think no disrespect to Memphis. I didn't know why they were so overrated going into the season, because they did nothing to fix what was a bad defense. They're an offense-only type of team. They've had their issues and lost a couple games already. Look, I just think that Tulane's got the better personnel. I give credit for what is a defense that makes plays. You wrote about it again on Crescent City Sports, debuted yesterday.
Was it 8 touchdowns by the defense?
6 touchdowns, 5 pick sixes.
Yeah, that's tops in the country.
And you know, they've won. Tulane also leads 15 consecutive in-season conference wins. Right. That's most in the country. Yeah. But I mean, they're going to have Tulane's going to have to have a lot of help to get into the top 12. A lot. Yeah. Guys would have to fall off and things. And that's.
But the season is still a great season.
It's still a great.
They lost to Kansas State and they lost to Oklahoma. Now Oklahoma's really kind of fell back. Kansas State again, they're still ranked. But it's been a great season. I think Kansas State's 19th in the college football playoffs this week. There's still been a great season for them, and they still can build on this going forward. I mean, again, you go through the rest of the AAC. Again, your AAC champions again. I'm not sure what bowl game you'll go to, but it's still been will be a great season for Tulane.
Well, when you're starting inexperienced quarterback, first road start. That's what happened at Oklahoma, and it really, I think, got you in the second half. And clearly the officiating was questionable at the end of Kansas State. We'd be having a very different conversation if Tulane would have found a way to pull out that game, but the quarterback inexperience hurt them on a crucial turnover as well in that game. So you can't control that. They made the right decision. They went with the best quarterback for them, and it's going to pay off longer term as long as, again, they keep him in the building. You have to mention that with college football. This is a very good team. John Sumrall has done what people thought he could do, no drop-off. Just like he went to Troy as a head coach and won, he's done it at Tulane. And
he's done it with a turnover on the roster, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, this is not the same Tulane team Willie Fritz had. There was like 50 players that were turned over in the offseason.
And I tell you one other person you got to worry about leaving. He's eligible, draft eligible, Mekhi Hughes.
Yeah.
He's draft eligible. And will he want to come back? I mean, people say this and that. Your body takes a lot of hits as a running back. Would he feel it's time for me to move on and make some money?
Isn't it the important thing that it's all about this year, though? That's in college football. You can't look ahead to the future. You got to say, what's my best way to win now?
Especially in the NIL and transfer era, right?
Yeah, and you've seen what the collective has done for Tulane.
They've done
to bring in all this talent. I mean, to be able to piece it together and have a playmaking defense when you lost a lot of parts. You had a lot of new faces in the secondary, and they're the ones coming up with all these pick sixes. Rene, you said they were talented. You wrote about it on our site. But to bring it together, Sumrall's been amazing.
Sumrall has done a great job, and he's such an he's so much like Willie Fritz. I mean, if he doesn't speak these words, when you're out there with John Sumrall, Willie used to say this all the time, you need me for anything? And I used to tell Willie, head coaches in college don't ask me if you need me for anything. But that's the kind of guy I was. And John is very
at Tulane, you have to be that. You have to promote your program.
But he's very, very much like that. And if John will spit those words, his eyes, like, you need anything from me. And it's just very, it's just a fun thing when you're out there, Tulane, watching practice and stuff. And I just enjoy it. And I'm so glad they're doing well.
Yeah, me too. Guys, let's take a look at this Tulane team. Look, they've got the quarterback, they've got the running game, they got a very good offensive line. Again, they have the speed and the playmakers at wide receiver. They got a heck of a tight end, right? So offensively, they're there. If there's any issues, again, it is penalties. Penalties have been an issue with this team, and that's something they have to get under control. Defensively, you mentioned on all three levels, they're playmakers. All three levels. And then, of course, special teams. Again, Carroll is one of the best punters in the nation. Again, he flips the field for you. So again, this is a pretty complete team that Sumrall's put together on the fly, because again, people don't realize, again, when you turn a roster over like that in the NIL transfer era, 50 different fields, like 53 players, that is a huge turnover.
My greatest concern left is the situation where you have to go to Annapolis to play that option offense, and they have the best personnel running that in many years. Perry was a really good quarterback for them, Malcolm Perry, a few years ago, but they've got even better pieces, I think, around the young quarterback they're going with right now. So that's going to be tough. You might get yourself in a shootout, and those discipline problems might hurt you against a team that's a service academy team. So you worry about that, and then the quick turnaround coming back home for a Thanksgiving game from a Saturday to a Thursday against Memphis, and you might get yourself stuck in a shootout there if you're dinged up and not ready to play. The schedule makers weren't kind to them, considering that's the two toughest games they have in conference right at the end. So that's my greatest concern.
You have a concern?
No, I agree with all of that. And the thing is that you got some leaders. You got Tyler Grubbs. You got Patrick Jenkins. You got some leaders on that defense, and that's you got some leaders on his team. You know, and on offense as well. And I just think that he's got the right chemistry there in the locker room, the right people, and that a lot of that went into the transfer portal. You were looking for talent, but you're looking for the right people, the right character people that fit the puzzle. And I think John Sumrall has done that.
Pelicans lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, 131 to 122. They're 3-6 now. They've been just beset by injuries. Again, with so many of their top players missing. Again, Herb Jones is missing, Murray's missing, Murphy's missing, Zion has missed time. Again, Hawkins has missed time. Again, although again both Hawkins and Zion played last night. Look, here's the issue, because we only got about 3 minutes left. They are getting killed in the paint. Okay, I got the stats here. 66, 66, 64 in the last 3 games. And it's not just bigs. Again, there's penetration in the paint by guards and forwards. Their perimeter defense is not what it was, and I get it. Again, Herb and Murray are injured, but you lost Najee, you lost Nysa Daniels, and you lost, obviously, again, in the middle, you lost JV and you lost Nance. And that is proving to be their Achilles heel thus far. It's not the same defensive team it once once was. Now maybe that changes when these guys come back a bit, but again, right now they are hurting because they don't have. Misi's a nice player. They don't have that guy to protect the rim and to protect the paint.
I can't blame the coaching. What's happened here. The injuries have been ridiculous. I know that's been a story for a long time, but they're legitimate injuries, and it's just horrible luck. I feel terrible for Willie Green and company. They've just got to survive and see if they can pick off as many wins as they can and get healthy again, because I do like their personnel, and I want to see what Murray and Jones leading a perimeter defense and making plays and getting in passing lanes can look like. Without them, you're playing guys you weren't thinking about playing or even having on your roster a month ago.
Yeah, right. Although, again, I would say Boston looks like he's a player for him. Again, Misi has come on and played well. But these guys are not your
right. You're talking about people that you wanted to put in a shift if you needed them, not play 25, 30 minutes.
Now, again, I do wonder, again, once guys come back, okay, what does this bench look like? This team, again, was deep, had a great bench. Again, they hung their hats on defense. They have not been a very good defensive team this season so far, and injuries are part of that. Will there be a push now after you're looking at the situation to go get that big, especially when you're seeing now against teams that don't. I mean, last night they had Twin Towers they went against, okay, and Misi did a decent job. But are you in a situation where now you're going to have to get that big? Brandon Ingram's playing at an all-star level right now.
Right.
Okay. If they don't have Brandon Ingram, it's worse than 3 and 6.
Isn't it strange that the injury list does not include Brandon Ingram?
Well, again, it's a contract year, and you're trying to prove to the rest of the league that guess what? I'm still an all-star type player.
It's impossible to evaluate them until they get everybody back and see if their style of play is going to work. So people are going to have to live through this for a while.
And Iron Man Herb Jones, the person that you always say and misses games, he's even hurt.
I mean, Murray is one of the most, when you look at, again, in games missed, he's gotten probably less games missed than most players in the league overall since he's been in the league. Am I right?
Right, and I mean, a broken hand. Right. You can't blame Oshin or Stafford for that, right? Come on.
It seems like the team is snake bit. It is what it is. I agree. Usually look at a team 20 games into a season, and that's when you can kind of figure out what they are. It's going to be delayed now because of the injuries.
You can't have chemistry and do what the Warriors, who everybody thought was dead and gone, they're doing it because they're healthy, and Buddy Hield is filling in at times for an injured Steph Curry, and they've only got one loss because they have the team they expected to go into the season with. They tweaked what they do a little bit, and they've got cohesion. So again, people judging the Pelicans right now and wanting to throw Willie Green off of the ledge with Dennis Allen, this is completely unfair. This is the NBA. You can only put 5 on the floor. You have 15 on the roster, and when half of them are hurt, you're going to lose games.
So again, anybody wants to talk about who the Pelicans are, it's to be determined, right?
It is. And the thing is that I think they will, when you get everybody back, they will be able to compete. The talent they have, I think you can compete. The problem is, we talked about in the middle.
That's right.
You know, I mean, Misi, you cannot count on Misi and Tice right now.
No.
I mean, if that's your guys, those are extra pieces.
And again, they're over the cap now.
Yes.
Okay. So again, you're going to have to subtract to add. Who are you going to subtract to add? Because again, they've got to look at this and say, look, Misi's played well. Light years about what we thought he was going to be, but he needs they need a legitimate center in there and allow him to come in and be able to piecemeal and maybe playing the next guy. We'll see again how it works out, but I agree with both you guys, to be determined. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on Inside New Orleans Sports, as always. Jude Young, also again, Rene, Nadeau, CrescentCitySports.com, 106.1 The Ticket. All right, so many ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code on your screen that'll take you to my website, ericasher.com, and also the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. Again, between WLAE-TV, WLAE-TV 2, Pelican Sports Television, so many ways to catch our program. Again, set your DVR and you'll never miss the show. You catch me on the radio, 106.1 The Ticket. That's 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Anchor, Spotify is where you can find our podcast. We're on all podcasting platforms. We have an app. 106.1 The Ticket app. You can take the station and the show with you everywhere. Make sure you download that for your smartphone or tablet. And of course, we want to thank our underwriters who make the show possible. Each and every one of those underwriters, thanks for their support of our program. Also, great thanks to the folks here at WLE produce our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alex Chacon, Thomas Healy, and the best director on the planet, William Hill. For Jude Young and Rene Nadeau, I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching.
Hey, I'm Keith Spira from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is Beatles expert and author Bruce Spicer. Bruce, is there such a thing as a favorite Beatles album for you?
Yes, the White Album.
Why?
I just love it, the variety of the music. It's not their best album, it's just my favorite.
Well, fair enough. We'll talk all things Fab Four this week on Let's Talk.
Classical Stretch the Esmond Technique is a full-body fitness program designed to help you lose weight, slenderize your body, relieve pain, and increase your energy. Whether you're 30 or 60, this scientifically designed strengthening and flexibility program will improve your posture, prevent injuries, and best of all, slow down the aging process. Join me for a classical stretch workout.
Sundays at 7:30 a.m. on WLAE.
Hey, I'm Keith Spira from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is Beatles expert and author Bruce Spicer. Bruce, is there such a thing as a favorite Beatles album for you?
Yes, the White Album.
Why?
I just love it, the variety of the music. It's not their best album, it's just my favorite.
Well, fair enough. We'll talk all things Fab Four this week on Let's Talk.